Okay, recording
We're
started.
live.
Welcome, ladies, to the Momentum Matters podcast. I have been waiting anxiously to get the two of you on here because I'm like one of your biggest fans. So, in this great lineup of speakers that we've had so far on the podcast, I'm just super excited to hear what you can share with our audience today. I wanted to mention that the theme for the next month or so of the Momentum Matters podcast is kind of about mental health and what we need to do to keep our psyche healthy, especially during really stressful times like a pandemic. So I've invited Dr. Lisa Graham, an organizational psychologist with McDonald Graham, and you can find more about her at McDonaldGraham.com. And Lisa's going to be sharing her thoughts on that with us today. And also René Washington, who is a life coach extraordinaire, because I've actually used her services. And you can find Rene at C, like the letter C, RenéWashington.com. All right, ladies, thank you so much for being here. And as we get started, could you just share with us a little bit more about how you two met? Of course, I knew, like, Lisa, I've heard you speak on the topic of scarcity, the scarcity mindset. And Rene, you and I have talked a lot about mental health, including my own. So I knew that you would make a good pair for this discussion today, but tell me how you met.
Absolutely. Rene, you want me to jump in with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Lisa. Rene and I met many years ago. I mean, it's probably been almost 18 years because she was working at Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and I was working at a different consulting company than where I am right now. And she was a client, and we just hit it off from the beginning. I liked her from the first time we met, just felt a special connection. And one of the things that Rene and I were texting about before this podcast was how much change both of us have had in our lives since that time, and why we really might be just the perfect people to talk about kind of springing forward and making changes in your life that work for you. So what would you add to that, Rene?
Oh, absolutely. I consider our meeting serendipitous because, yes, you came in as a consultant to the company and we worked together on a training project. And as Lisa said, she and I clicked. And, there are those moments in life when you meet somebody and you just know that you want to get to know them better. And that was the way it was with Lisa because, we met a lot of people coming through the company. But Lisa was one that it extended beyond just work. We just have always had this ability to click and connect and talk beyond work. And she is, such a grounded individual and someone who is brilliant. And I've always admired her. And because Lisa is somebody who is supportive in a way that is real and it's not fake. And so that is why I love Lisa. So I can go on and on, but I won't. But it does speak to how one of my guiding lights is follow the nudge. Follow your nudge. And before I even knew what that was, because back then I was in corporate whatever. And so and I was still trying to figure myself out, which is, as Lisa and I talked about, that's an ongoing thing. But I did not know. I knew that I wanted to do something different. And through working with Lisa and watching Lisa and learning from Lisa, that was part of my transition out of corporate into what I'm doing now. And I don't think I've ever actually said that to you.
No, you haven't. But it leaves me sort of speechless, actually, to hear that. The admiration goes both ways, 100%. And I love that, although it wasn't coordinated intentionally, a lot of the changes that we've both made in our lives, happened around the same time and for the same reasons. This sense of something not fitting, and wanting to figure out what does fit. And it is easier to make those decisions when someone you admire is making those decisions. And I feel that way, about you as well. And I think that hopefully I see light at the end of the tunnel. The Johnson & Johnson, vaccine has been approved.
Yes.
And I think that, we may be able to get vaccines sometime soon, which means that the world will start looking different, I hope. And I think that, this topic of what you want in your life and how to make sure that with the next stage, what you keep in your life or the things you want to keep in your life is really apropos of the moment that we're in right now, as things are about to change again.
Yes. Nothing is wasted. And so I know that the past year, we can talk about all the horror of the past year, because there was a lot of horrible things in the past year. And it was also such a great self-learning time of introspection and reflection. And, when all these things that we think we have to do, should do, and COVID came to say, oh, yes, I can shut down the world. Yes, all those things that you thought you had to do, no, you're not going to do those. And so as we had to pivot, which, I know Lisa had to do that in her business. I did it in my business, become more creative, even with, April, I don't want to leave you out, because, our connection to April through Momentum, that has been serendipitous for me too. And I always think about Momentum because the day before our world shut down, we were at the Momentum, we were at the Momentum conference. And so then, Momentum had to pivot. And, I know both of us have been a part of that pivot. And what it has shown me is that, we are continuously and evolving and changing, because we are always responding. And I know you can speak to that, Lisa, from, we're talking about mental health. And one of the foundational things for my mental health is that to accept that life happens, that things are always going to go well. Things are always going to go bad. This is life. What is my response? And just staying grounded in that response. And as you know, my theme for that is to continuously let crap go. I'll be nice. Let crap go. And you have to continuously purge out what is not serving you. So, that's one of the things that during this past year, I have really tried to pay attention to. What did I have to stop doing? What did I have to do differently? Now that the world is opening up again, like Lisa alluded to, what do I want to keep? What do I want to bring with me? I don't want to pick up things that, I was relieved to let go. I don't want to pick those things back up again.
Well, so say a little bit more about that, Renee. What are some of the things you don't want to pick back up?
So, we had a certain way of doing things where we thought that, it could be meetings. It could be people that you thought you had to be connected to, or it's mostly around how I spend my time. If you do the word for the year, last year, my word was surrender, because, hey, we had to surrender. And this year, my word is spaciousness, because I love how that quarantine time opened up space in my life. And I want to be very intentional and conscious of that as to what I bring in, and what I release, what I bring in. I did a big purge this weekend. I believe in physical purging, that it opens up your head space when you do that, there's a direct connection to getting rid of what's cluttering up your life, whether it's things in your house, whether it's people in your life, whatever the thing is, too much social media, too much of whatever, to really pay attention to what feels weighty and burdensome.
Yes. You know, I think that one of the challenges that many of us are going to be faced with very soon is having to say no.
Yes.
A lot of things that are going to become, again, available to us. You know, there's been sort of an excuse, at least for me. I know that there are a lot of people who cannot wait for everything to reopen and for them to be 100% re-engaged. For me, and Renee and I have talked about this, I haven't been that unhappy
Me
about being like stuck at home and even having some more like alone time than what I normally get. That actually has been a privilege. So we're about to have the opportunity to re-enter in a big way. And it's easy to say to people, you know, you need to say no to the things that don't serve you. It is much, much harder to say no. And I think preparing ourselves, being really clear about what we want to take on and what we don't want to take on, and being ready with our no response, I think is really important. And digging underneath and figuring out, why is saying no to these things hard for me? What are the invisible barriers that I'm putting up psychologically that keep me from being able to say no when I know I really want to? April, were you hoping to be part of this podcast?
I am just loving hearing the two of you speak.
And you know, let you ask any questions.
No, it's fine. And I was just thinking as you were talking that, you know, one of the things that we find very helpful with our momentum classes is to have people write those things down.
Yes.
Even if it's just on a little 3x5 card that says, you know, the things, it's like the roses and the thorns exercise, you know, what coming out of this pandemic, what are the things that bring me joy that I want to carry forward? And what are the thorns in my side that I need to leave behind? And just writing this, I've got an index card on my desk at home, you know, that's got those things on it.
Yes. So I absolutely agree on getting that clarity and being prepared to say to what your yeses, what you want your yeses to be and what you want your nos to be. I was working with a client recently and I said to her, because she's about to retire from this long career. And she said, I already know that people are going to try to fill my time.
Yes.
And and I said, okay, well, you know, let's come up with a response now. So her response is going to be, let me think about that. I'll get back to you in 24 hours.
Yep.
You know, just give you, we are so conditioned, particularly I do believe as women that we are more conditioned to say yes immediately because we want to please and help. And when we know that we can do something, we think we should do it. And, you know, one of my favorite things is, this is a scripture, you know, everything permissible is not advisable. Mm-hmm. Everything permissible is not advisable. And listen, I'm so glad that I'm having this conversation with Lisa, because another thing about Lisa is her level of graciousness, because that everything permissible is not advisable. You know, I did work with Lisa. Lisa and I have worked together, and I hit this wall because I was doing things that I really did not want to do. And I didn't realize it. It just started showing up. And it almost, our friendship took a hit for a minute because of it. And it was a huge learning lesson for me in being honest with yourself and trusting yourself, and also, communicating. And I wasn't communicating. I was confused. I wasn't communicating. And to Lisa's credit, she actually forgave me. And I really want to share that, because I know that a lot of women listening to this podcast deal with that imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, and feeling like if they only knew. You need to know, first of all, you need to know who you are. And that self-knowledge, that deep steeping in your identity and understanding that who you used to be may not be who you are, and most likely is not, because we do continue to grow and evolve and change, and it's okay.
Thank goodness.
Yes,
Thank goodness.
yes, yes,
Well,
yes.
And I think, what you speak to, Renee, also is the role that we play as women in each other's lives.
Yes.
Right? Because
yes.
I think that it is our responsibility to reach out to other women and to recognize that we're all on that journey, right? And we all, you tripped up that time. I know there's going to be a time that I trip up, and you're going to be there for me. And that's what we should be doing for each other. And I think too often we're set up because there are fewer women in leadership roles, which we hope, that's not going to be true for much longer with their programs like Momentum.
Absolutely.
But it ends up feeling competitive, a sort of a sense of competition between us. And we can get so much farther together. And I think about the example that you just gave as evidence of that, right? That life is a series of experiments.
Mm-hmm.
Julie, my business partner, Dr. Julie McDonald, and I talk about this a lot. Life is a series of experiments, and we have to frame it that way. You did an experiment and took on some work, and it turned out, guess what? That experiment didn't work. That work was not for you, right? But then you experimented with something else that did fit, right?
Yes.
And I hope that as people see our world changing and opening up again, they see that as an opportunity for a new experiment, right? What was not working for me before the pandemic? What experiment do I want to run? Sometimes it's hard to make change because we think about whatever change we're making as being the final change.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I say this all the time to women, that a decision is not a life sentence.
Right.
It's a decision.
Right. And it's the next experiment, right?
Yes. And, I love the experiment analogy. And I told Lisa, I use chapters, close this chapter, write a new chapter. It's okay. It's okay.
I found myself thinking the other day, as I thought, okay, I turned 50 this year, and therefore life is feeling more scarce than it used to feel. Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking about all the chapters of my life. And I thought, I feel like 12 people, not one.
I know.
So then my cup felt very, very full,
right.
And it was a really liberating moment. And I was really thinking of you, Renee, as I had that thought,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I just believe that for those of us who want to truly show up in our best self, and I know that's a cliche, but our highest best self is a thing. It's real. And to do that, we'll have many chapters, many experiments, because the thing about the experiment analogy that I love is that scientists expect things to go wrong.
That's right.
They expect things to go wrong. Because that's information. That's all it is. It's information. Okay, well, it's not that. So let's try this.
Mm-hmm.
And, the closer we can get to living our lives in that way, I just believe that the more expansiveness that we will live in, and the higher level of contribution, because, I know that that's what the three of us want to do. We want to contribute at the highest level possible. We want to be influencers. We want to be positive influencers. And that's not going to happen if we stay static and if we stay stuck in, but what if I mess up?
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa, you were saying something before about the importance of us collaborating and not seeing the scarcity of the number of women in leadership. That made me think back to the first meeting that we had. So I knew you, and I knew your work and Julie's work because I had attended, workshops that you had done or speaking engagements that you had. But the first sit-down meeting that we had, with me being CEO at Momentum and you having just moved into that fancy office that you had to abandon because of COVID.
Yes.
And we sat down together and we just really went through, this is the way momentum works. Like, it was completely transparent, full transparency. This is the momentum program. This is how long it lasts. This is how much it costs. This is what we're trying to accomplish. And you all did the same thing with your Transforming Success and those courts, and shared material with me, even invited me to participate in one. And, it's that level of cooperation and transparency. Neither one of us was afraid that one was going to steal the other one's trade secrets or intellectual property or compete for women attending our programs. Our programs are always full, as yours are always full, because there's more need than there is, content. So I just appreciate you all being that open and that transparent. And Renee, the same thing for the year that you kind of shadowed the executive program at Momentum. That was really, I think, very helpful for you as you got your business started.
Absolutely.
It also is great for us to build that relationship with you. I mean, how many times have we cashed in on that and invited you to come back and speak and lead things? So, it's all good.
Yeah. And I love how you made that connection, because, this trope of women having to be competitive and having to hold tight to things and not to be able to share with each other as if there aren't billions of people in this world. And that the more that one of us rises, the more all of us can rise.
Yes.
And as we know, with what happened, we were, yes, in a health pandemic, we were also in a racial pandemic. And, that really highlighted how systematized exclusion has been. Mm-hmm. And so I am so glad to be connected to both of you, because, that ally word is a thing, and some people have a problem with that or whatever. I don't care what you call it. I know that the two of you, that I can have honest, open, and real conversations, and that we can speak very transparently about, what's going on in the world and what's going on in our world. And I know that both of you have it as a high value to do what you can when you can. And that is so important. Yes, as it relates to, racism and gender issues and all the things that we all have to show up in that. We, the other big lesson from COVID for me is that we are all connected globally. I am a global citizen. We cannot stay stuck in this, just my little world thing. And, I'm only going to care about the people in my world. No, because we affect each other. We can infect each other.
Listen, right. Like a man or woman coughed in Wuhan, China.
Yes.
And look at what happened.
Yes.
If that's not evidence of our connection, I don't know.
And and which is even more reason why we have to support each other instead of trying to, demonize each other, rip each other apart, hold each other back. There's just no benefit in that. Even if you do only care about yourself, then you need to understand that, what I do matters. What you do matters for all of us.
Yeah. I'd like to dig in a little bit more to what you said about, being able to have conversations about things that matter. Because, the three of us have the benefit of having enough relationship, I think, to know that if I were to say something and it were to come out wrong, or were to be offensive to you in some way, that what's in my heart and would give me feedback about that, as
Absolutely.
opposed to, shutting the door to our relationship. And I think that there are a lot of people who want to do the right thing and want to have these conversations, but aren't starting them because of that fear of stumbling. And I think it's so important. Like, listen, that if you are a leader in today's world and you are not an advocate for diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, you will not be standing, 5 to 10 years from now.
Yes.
And so we have to make ourselves vulnerable and have the conversations. But I wonder, I'm asking really both of you, what advice do you have for people that want to have those conversations, but are holding back because they're nervous?
Yeah. Well, I believe this in general. You can always ask the question. Mm-hmm. Be ready for the answer. Mm-hmm. And we've drawn some hard lines, over this past year. My only line is, if I know that you are someone who has gone into what I call, the dark side of the world, where, like, if you see me as, if you look at me and you either say to me, if I know that you don't believe in my existence, or that you don't believe in my ability to elevate my existence, if you think there is some world order that says I cannot have the same opportunity that you have, I can talk to you about that to the extent that you're open to receiving what I have to say, and being open to considering that maybe that's not a path to continue to follow on. For those, and to me, that's a small percentage of people that are really, like, in the sunken world. Everybody else, though, yes, it's yes, there's discomfort. I've had many conversations about, even from somebody saying, well, I don't see color. And when people say that to me, I just say, that means you don't see me. So let's talk about that. Let me, I know what you think you mean when you say that, but this is how I receive that. And so I am always open to, have those types of uncomfortable conversations. I'm not going to shut anybody down because maybe they believe something that either I know isn't true, or is just truly out of the pure definition of the word ignorance. Mm-hmm. So that I am happy to have those conversations. We're talking about mental health and the things that we want to do. And one of the things as it relates to that is there is an extra layer of weight that minorities carry around. At the same time, though, I'm not one for this, oh, Lisa and April, let me make you feel guilty for being white. I hate that. And I don't want anybody to feel more aggrieved for me than I feel for myself. This is not what that's about. This, to me, is about learning, expanding, and understanding. I have to understand too. We talk about the LGBTQI community, and I'm very conscious of pronouns now. And a few years ago, I was like, look, that's just a lot to have to think about. But now I have shifted in that. So, I think there's something that all of us have to learn. I think that having the conversations is important. I think the conversations between the majority is critical too. I think white people need to talk to white people, because that's who can really make the change. If our having a conversation could have changed things would be changed a long time ago. So I think there are all kinds of conversations that need to be happening, and we should embrace having those. We should be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable and not shy away. And if this won't happen with us, but say, Lisa, you did say something to me and I just got real upset about it and got offended and all of that, I would hope that you would look at me as an individual and say, well, that's Rene. That's not going to stop me from having a conversation with Tanya or Gwen or somebody else. That's just Rene, because that's another thing. We get this broad brush of, if one person responds that way, then I can't talk to any of them.
Yeah, and Rene, you really helped me out. I see myself as a leader of leaders, And so therefore I was very concerned about my own response.
That's right.
And so I called you, and, you know, I was like, I don't want to be one of those white people calling one of my black friends saying, how do I talk about this? But there I was.
Yes.
Doing it. And you were so understanding. And, you know, to your original question, Lisa, how do we help people to have these conversations? Just do it.
Yes.
And say, you know, make yourself vulnerable and say it up front. Say, hey, I'm not going to get this 100% right. And I trust you as a friend to tell me how you're feeling as I'm talking about this, but I don't want to not talk about it just because talking about it makes me uncomfortable.
Mm.
I think if I remember something from my college psychology classes, there was this cognitive dissonance idea. And that really stuck with me, like walking around with that weight on you when you know you should be talking about it, but are afraid to, just creates, you know, this dissonance in your psyche. It's not good for your mental health.
No, it's a cognitive weight for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, April, what that you hoped we would talk about have we not gotten to? Because we've had no trouble.
I know you had no trouble. I'm coming up with things.
Yeah. I could talk to you all day, but
I would love it if each of you had maybe just 2 things that you wanted to share with our listeners and viewers about coming out of this pandemic. You know, what am I doing differently in order to carry forward the resilience and the courage and the strength that dealing with COVID and dealing with the racial pandemic, as you said, Renee, you know, what do we ask people to carry forward?
Well, you know, I would just really ask people to, particularly the women listening to this podcast, to truly connect to that inner voice. That inner voice is always speaking to us and nudging us to move us forward. And we are really good at suppressing it. And so I would really encourage, you know, whatever self-awareness has been highlighted for you during this year that we've gone through, to examine it, assess it, and honor it, and to really let that translate into a higher level of your knowing yourself and then trusting yourself and following those nudges. Yeah. And that will, you know, truly serve you well.
Yes. And so I'll just build on that, because I think that, you know, Renee hit the nail on the head. And my encouragement would be to find your accountability partner.
Yes.
Whoever that is. It goes back to this theme of, you know, we are stronger together. Sometimes it's hard to hear the inner voice, and you need someone who you trust, who you can talk to, and hearing yourself talk and having them reflect back to you helps you locate that voice. It's also important to commit out loud to someone who you care about and who cares about you, what you're going to do differently, and to check in with that person so that you feel like you've created some external accountability for yourself.
Yes. And I will just add to that, you know, one of the things that I keep saying to myself and I say to clients is, you know, once you are clicked into, you know, what you want based off of, and that does connect to who you are, you know, then as you are responding to the external, you know, does this serve you or is it sabotaging you? Does it serve you or does it sabotage you? And I love what Lisa said about the accountability, because I will just say, and make you both my accountability partners, that, you know, it's been in my head that I want to do this travel sabbatical. You know, COVID kind of got in the way of that. But my plan this year is to really do the things that will move me toward the next, you know, in 21, 22, 23, that I am just floating around this globe, because I think life should be enjoyable. So I'm just like, you know, so what's some dream that you've been sitting on, you know, and that, you know, because the other thing about COVID is time is arbitrary, right?
Right.
Do we want to, continue to sitting on things that on some level we could be doing in some shape, form, or fashion right now?
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both for being here today, for making the time. I know it's
our pleasure.
A crazy busy time. So we really appreciate you, appreciate your insights. And if our listeners would like to hear more from you, Lisa, how do they do that?
So in addition to the website that you directed them to, we have a couple of ways that we work with people. One is through executive coaching, which you mentioned, but we have 2 programs that we run. One is called Transforming Success. And that program really focuses on giving people, we call it the primer for future leadership development, which doesn't mean that you have to be a new leader to benefit from it, because what we hear from clients so often is I missed a lot of the psychological health, self-care, mindset work. I missed it. No one ever gave that to me. And we provide through that program, that primer. We also deliver Brene Brown's Dare to Lead program, which is another, we love her work. It fits right along with our, philosophy that we are human at work and have to address those human pieces of ourselves. So those would be probably the 3 main ways that Julie and I engage.
And you have a wonderful Facebook community.
We do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do.
See, that's what you wanted me to say. And I talked about everything except for that. We do. It's our Facebook community is called Psychology at Work. And we just hopefully have good conversations in there, try to share. Everything we do is research-based, share research-based information with members.
Awesome. And how about you, Renee?
Yes. Well, I do highly recommend the Facebook group. It is awesome. And for me, my website, let me correct April, it's crenecoach.com. So yeah, you said Washington at the beginning, but that's all right. It's crenecoach, crenecoach.com. Rene is 1 E. And you can find out about me. I just wrote a book called Take the Trip: 4 Journeys Every Midlife Woman Needs to Live in Purpose and Freedom. And it's a great little primer on how you can get your life right. So you can check that out. You can buy it at all the major book retailers. I also have a partnership with 2 amazing women, Gwen Hall and Tanya Allen. And we have a company called Career Triage HQ. And through my website, you can connect to that also. And we work with women who have hit a wall in their careers and things aren't going the way they expected, and they want help with that. So those are the 2 ways, 3 ways that you can connect with me: through my book, through crenecoach.com, which will tell you all the things.
All the things. I love it. I need to know all the things. Okay. Thanks again, ladies, for being with us today. And I hope to see you in person soon.
Yes, I hope
we look forward to it. Thanks so much, April. And thanks for all the wonderful work you do at Momentum.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yes.
The Momentum Matters podcast would not be possible without our sponsors. Please visit our website at momentumleaders.org/sponsors to learn more. Signing off, this is Karen Taradis with Social U.